Over the past week, many of you have commented, but what about the solutions? Do we have any solutions? Can we come up with any solutions as a society and as a system in order to fix what's been going on in this country ourselves since our liberal government won't do it or won't help? Well, we've come up with some answers, and this Saturday episode is an important one. Stick with us. Let's go.
Welcome to Bakes on Things.
Welcome back to Bakes on Things. Canada stands at a crossroad. Over the past decade, citizens have witnessed a country struggling under the weight of political mismanagement, economic instability, and social fragmentation. Major cities face housing crises. Local businesses shutter their doors, national unity feels tenuous, and faith in the federal government continues to erode. However, Canadians need not wait for the federal government to act. In fact, we really shouldn't. Across the globe, citizen movements have shaped better outcomes where governments have failed their citizens. This report today, we're going to outline the key problems Canada faces and present some actual solutions citizens can implement to take back the control and rebuild the nation. The first thing we want to address today is the housing crisis because it's our biggest problem. Soaring real estate prices, speculative investment, and restrictive zoning laws have made home ownership and rental housing unattainable for many Canadians. So, what are our citizen solutions here? Well, we could try things like community land trusts or CLTs. Now, a CLT is a nonprofit organization that acquires land and holds it permanently in trust to ensure housing remains affordable. Citizens can collectively fundraise or partner with municipalities to establish CLTs that protect land from speculation and guarantee long-term housing affordability well into the future. You can also advocate for zoning reform. Many cities limit housing types with zoning laws that prioritize single family homes. Citizens can push municipal leaders and anybody in your council to allow more flexible housing like duplexes, triplexes, and accessory dwelling units to increase housing supply and to reduce prices. Now, there's also cooperative housing, which I know is a little controversial, but housing co ops are shared ownership communities where residents have a voice in governance and collectively manage the property itself. Co ops typically offer lower rents and more stability than private rentals. Now, when we shift to government accountability and transparency, which is a real problem in Canada, a lack of transparency, broken promises, and absence of budgetary discipline has eroded public trust in our federal government. So, what can citizens do here? Well, there are some solutions. Citizen watchdog groups are really important to have, and residents can create groups that monitor the actions of elected officials altogether, from municipal to provincial to federal, such as how they vote, how they spend public funds, and whether they deliver on campaign promises at all, and publicly share this information, much like we do on this platform. There's also direct democracy tools, and democracy gives citizens more control over policy by advocating for referendum rights, recall elections, and citizen initiated laws. Canadians can ensure that government decisions reflect the public will when they do this. This model actually works very, very well over in Switzerland. There's also independent journalism like we do here. Mainstream media often misses key issues or lacks neutrality. Citizens can start YouTube channels like I've done, newsletters, or community blogs that investigate and report local political issues to improve the transparency of this country. Shifting over to what we've learned about the Bay and retail collapse and really this decline of our small business groups as well, the problem is big box consolidation, online retail dominance, and lack of competitive tax policies have absolutely devastated all business in Canada, especially small business. So, what can citizens do? Well, local spending pledges are really important. Citizens can consciously shift spending habits to support local businesses, like community initiatives. Initiatives like we've already seen, like Buy Canadian or Buy Local campaigns, help keep money circulating within the local economy. There's also mutual aid networks, which is an interesting solution. These are community groups where people share resources like tools, labor, or small loans to support local entrepreneurs. This helps small businesses access funding without relying on banks and federally regulated institutions. There's also community owned businesses as well. Residents can form cooperative businesses or share ownership in local enterprises. This distributes profits locally and ensures the business is run in the community's best interests. Now, we also know that Canada is devastated by crime and a drug epidemic now, and you'd think it's only the police that can help. A sharp rise in petty crime, addiction, and open air drug scenes, especially in urban centers, threaten public safety. So, what can a citizen do in this case? Well, number one, we've got the usual neighborhood watch and safety groups. Communities can organize regular patrols or reporting systems in partnership with police to deter crime and improve public safety. But there's also community recovery programs inspired by Portugal's success here. Communities can advocate for addiction policies that focus on treatment rather than punishment, such as creating recovery centers and support programs, but making sure they don't end up back out on the street. Urban renewal initiatives as well. Citizens can revitalize neglected spaces with cleanup events, murals, or community gardens, making public spaces attractive and actively discourages crime and improves community well-being as well. Now, we've also seen in this country, we reported on it this week, some wage stagnation and cost of living increases that are crazy right now. The problem, well, inflation drives up costs, Canadian wages have failed to keep pace, putting pressure on all of our working families across this nation. So many of you wonder, what can we do here? And how can we do it for ourselves when the government won't? Well, worker owned businesses are important. Employees can form cooperatives or buy out businesses to collectively own and run them themselves. This creates more equitable pay and long term job security, and that's actually being done before. There's also barter and local currency systems. These systems allow people to trade goods and services without money. Your local buy nothing on Facebook's a great example. A plumber might fix a teacher's sink in exchange for some tutoring. Why not try these things to reduce the costs for families? Financial literacy campaigns. Communities can offer workshops or online content on managing money, reducing debt, and building savings, helping citizens cope with economic stress. And when it comes down to runaway immigration and infrastructure deficit, there are solutions here too. Right now, the problem is we have high immigration levels without matching investments in housing and healthcare and transit. And all of this strains our communities. So, what as citizens can we do? You've asked, we're answering. Push for more immigration balance. Citizens can actually engage with local officials to advocate for immigration levels that match available infrastructure and ensure fair resource distribution. There's also mentorship and integration circles. These programs pair new immigrants with longtime residents to ease cultural integration, which is a big problem in Canada that immigrants do not get support for. It improves language skills and it reduces community friction. Volunteer infrastructure coalitions also help. Citizens can form volunteer groups to identify and advocate for local infrastructure needs like schools, clinics, and transit routes. There's also problems in Canada with resource development and our energy gridlock and the inability to build pipelines. So, how would you ask, or how would you say citizens can help this? Well, the problem is Canada's natural resource potential is stifled right now by regulatory red tape like C69, foreign interference, and lack of infrastructure. But what can you do? You can do citizen energy cooperatives. Communities can invest in and operate their own renewable energy projects like wind turbines or solar farms, or reducing reliance on large utilities. You can't dig for oil yourself, but you can certainly create your own energy. Demand for federal clarity as well. Citizens can actually organize petitions and town halls and peaceful protests demanding clear, supportive policies for resource development, which is super important, even if you think you're not being listened to. Support local resource industries as well. Promote trades education. We're seeing this more in Alberta, especially. Entrepreneurship and investment in industries like mining, forestry, and oil that create jobs and export revenue. Now, what about national unity and regional alienation like we're seeing in Alberta and Quebec and even BC and Saskatchewan right now? Because the problem is, we've got feelings of Western alienation and lack of representation, and all of this continues to grow even in Quebec as well, threatening national cohesion as we know it. So, what can citizens do about something like this? Well, there's also opportunity to do things like cross country civic dialogues, host discussions online or in person where citizens from different regions share perspectives, reducing division and building mutual understanding. You can also demand equalization reform, learn how federal funding formulas work, and advocate for changes that treat all provinces fairly. And then there's media decentralization support, or launching of regional media platforms that actually and accurately reflect local issues, values, and perspectives. We've seen companies like Bell reduce community television networks drastically over the years. We need to get back to that. Case studies from around the world prove that this stuff works. If you go to Iceland, after the 2008 banking crisis, citizens led a national movement to rewrite their constitution and hold all bankers accountable. And it worked. Iceland has recovered. Portugal, by decriminalizing drugs and focusing on health based solutions, Portugal drastically reduced overdose deaths and improved recovery outcomes across the nation. In Switzerland, Swiss citizens vote several times a year on major national policies, the citizens giving them a direct voice in their country's governance. Even in the United States, local groups have taken back control of school boards and community policies, demonstrating the power of grassroots mobilization when it's needed the most. See, this is it. This is our opportunity. This is the time to mobilize. How to mobilize in Canada? Well, organize your neighborhood councils and mutual aid groups to address local issues. Use digital platforms like we're using now before they censor it, and hopefully they don't, but like social media and YouTube to educate and mobilize others around you. Use your neighborhood groups. Talk to people on groups on LinkedIn, even. Engage in peaceful protest petitioning and local advocacy to push for policy change. Other things you can do: launch independent media channels like this one to share untold stories and hold power accountable. Build and join local co ops, land trusts, and credit unions to protect your economic future. You yourself can even run for things like school boards, municipal councils, or any local office where real change begins with the citizens themselves. Volunteer and vote strategically to support leaders who prioritize citizen concerns. To wrap this up, and it's a great weekend episode, I'm thrilled you're watching. Canada's crisis, though, is serious, but not insurmountable. See, throughout history, citizens have been the backbone of national recovery, not just in this country, but around the world. It is time for Canadians to channel their frustration into action with courage, innovation, and unity. Everyday people can reclaim power, rebuild prosperity, and restore Canada's promise. So, Canada, let's get to work. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday.